your message to Iran in this moment?
Don't. To any country, any organization, anyone thinking of taking advantage of this situation, I have one word: don't.
To any actor, state or non-state, trying to take advantage of this crisis to attack Israel, don't.
Anyone thinking about trying to take advantage of this atrocity, we have just one word: don't.
Well, how's that been working? You know, today, that's what they're saying again. The last time they said don't, they were totally and completely disregarded, and Iran did. Whether it's from itself or its proxies, Iran did. Joe Biden says don't, Iran does. Shocking to see that this president and his administration, that he's telling what to say. Obviously, there's clear-cut coordination. You heard that just a second ago in the montage there. But it's shocking that after all the failures, after saying don't, he literally says the same thing again. So what does that mean? It means you're going to be able to do, and he's not going to do anything about it. And if he does, it'll be very little, which means here's your license, here's your green light, go, do. When I hear that, I hear do. And it's a fact because we have a record of it. In the meantime, we are on the brink of a much wider war. And what that is Iran today officially announcing, according to our U.S. officials, that in 24 to 48 hours, Iran will launch an attack on Israel directly, possibly with ballistic missiles shot into Israel or at one of its embassies or other ways. And in fact, they're saying that it appears that Israel is going to launch a bunch of one-way drones and ballistic missiles, possibly directly from Israel into Israel. And Israel has said clearly, this is reported widely yesterday, Israel said, if you strike us, if you attack us in Iran, we will pound you. We will hit you. So Israel is going to attack Iran in its country, in its borders, directly for the first time in a little while. I mean, a while, I would say. I don't know the last time it was, but it's probably been a couple of years or more, at least. And so what this means is you could have a much wider war. Joe Biden has shifted and put he's got one destroyer in the region. He's sending two back to this area, possibly to the Red Sea, or possibly to the other side of Iran. The other side of Iran. Can't remember that ocean, but he's going to send it to one or both sides. The other destroyer is being redeployed back to, or redirected from another part of the world where it's coming back. So we will soon have two destroyers there. And to put it worse, even to make matters worse, Iran has also said that if the United States of America should get involved in this, that it will pound us too. Iran is directly threatening the United States of America after Joe Biden gave it $8 billion in oil money, turned the spigots wide open for Iran, took off the restrictions, and let them go. The United States forces in the region, if the United States gets involved between the fighting between Israel and Iran said, U.S. forces in the region will be attacked by Iran. Quote, the Iranian message, according to two senior officials or one senior official that the United States, that Axios talked to today, the Iranians' message was, we will attack the forces that attack us, so don't F with us, and we won't F with you. Why do you think this is happening? Why do you think all this is happening? Why do you think war is breaking out in the Middle East and possibly a much bigger war could be busting out over the weekend? If you ask me, I think it's clear. Joe Biden has gotten us into war in Ukraine and Russia that never would have happened with a bold president who's got up here like Trump. And after that, actually it started with Afghanistan. Started with Afghanistan and the massive failure and collapse chosen by Joe Biden, not listening to anybody, any of his advisors, military advisors, none of them, overriding them, saying, no, what you're going to do, we're going to pull out. And you saw the disaster in Afghanistan. That showed the world that we were not going to stand up to our enemies, that we were on the withdrawal. We are on the run. We're not on the offensive, and we're certainly not strong and stable and just standing still. We are on the defensive, and we're actually running away. We're on the evasive. And then that sent the signal for Russia to go in. And Joe Biden said, if you recall, a minor incursion is okay. He literally said the most unthinkable thing a president's ever said to Russia or any enemy of ours. Hey, if you do a minor incursion in Ukraine, that's okay. Well, so there was Russia saying Afghanistan was a joke. Joe Biden ran with his tail between his legs. He tells us we can do an incursion. We got 70,000 troops around Ukraine. Invade. And they did with impunity. So then Hamas saw that and coordinates directly their besties with China and with Russia. And Hamas said, we're going to slaughter the Jews. And it went and it did. And now, let me get out the phone number. The first thing I want to do, actually, 800-288-WBAP is our number, 800-288-9227. Do you blame this widening Middle East war on President Biden, as I do? Do you believe that Biden set off this whole chain reaction that's led to the moment we're in right now, where Iran is directly threatening us and is directly threatening Israel? And Joe Biden, by the way, is telling the world that we're about to see Iran attack Israel because his decision. I heard even the liberal Leslie Marshall on Fox News, Brett Baer's show this afternoon. Even she said she totally disagreed with broadcasting or telecasting to the world. Hey guys, we know that Iran's about to attack Israel. They said, don't do that. Send them a message. And Trump said, if you harm one American, you will pay. And Iran didn't listen to Trump. It hurt one of our Americans, and we pounded the crap out of them. We killed their top general, Qasem Soleimani. And Iran just did what Joe Biden would never do, what Trump would do. Iran just took out not a Qasem Soleimani, but somebody right in that league, maybe one rung under him, in Syria. And he also killed 7 other IRCG guards and some other diplomats at the Iranian embassy in Syria where they were meeting. And so that has begotten where we're at now, all because Joe Biden has not kept the peace of the world through strength. That's all there is to it. So I blame Joe for this. And this is what happens when you're weak. In fact, I might not be able to bring this quote perfectly like I heard it today on Fox, but one of the generals has said recently that fecklessness or weakness is provocative. I think it was exactly weakness is provocative. In other words, you're provoking Iran. You're provoking China. You're provoking Russia. You're provoking North Korea by showing your weakness. That's what it is. We have invited attacks by our weakness, by our publicly displayed weakness. All right, so a couple questions on this. And second of all, this was a big story yesterday and today, and now the war thing has eclipsed it. But I don't know if you caught this. Hamas said, we will not accept any deal except for our deal. And here's what their deal was. They said, by the way, the 135, 140 hostages, we don't think most of them are alive that we can get back to you. Oops, they all died. We have about 44 left, 40 of them left. Oops. I think there's some men that they didn't include in that because they're not going to bring them back because they're military age or they're military. But still, possibly as many as like half of them are dead. And they announced that, just so you know, oops. 5 Americans are still in their custody. They've been kidnapping, murdering Americans, and Joe Biden's done not a damn thing. Excuse my language. So the question on that is, and Joe Biden told Israel, stop it. Don't go in there and criticize Israel. Remember that? So guess what? This in the Journal today that Israel, quote, it's unbelievable to read this to you. I'm very sad and I'm serious. That Israel wins Gaza battles but risks losing the war. I'm going to get into that a little bit later, but Israel literally wins the Gaza battles, not the battle overall, but risks losing the war. Because Joe Biden told them to go and defend and killed Hamas, and now he told them about a week or two ago in the past couple of weeks, he literally said, you are the same thing as Hamas through Anthony Blinken. I can read the statement for you when he said it, if we all recall that it was in the news. You are the same as Hamas. Israel, and now he's gone around and said, oh crap, Iran has been emboldened by my weakness. Oh crap, Iran, don't hit him. Iran says, we're going to hit you, U.S., if you stop this, if you get involved in this. And the reports are that, as I mentioned, several one-way drones, not several, like I guess hundreds of one-way drones are being deployed. They're putting them together at a warehouse in Iran or in Syria and in Lebanon, not Lebanon, but where Lebanon is Lebanon is a country. I'm sorry, I was getting confused. But Syria and Lebanon, they've deployed them to warehouses there, and they're going to be shooting ballistic missiles, possibly, if not from Lebanon and Syria, directly from Iran. Look at what Joe's begotten us. So my questions are: do you blame this widening Middle East war tonight on President Biden? If you were Israel, would you take this deal that Hamas is saying, hey, we'll give you 40 or so hostages back, but guess what else the other part of the deal is? Hey, we'll give you the hostages back, but you have to pull out completely out of Gaza. Completely. You cannot go into Rafah and kill the rest of us. In fact, reports are that Hamas has already dispersed throughout Gaza. Like, not all of it, but much of it. Back into the areas that were already cleared and held. I'll give more details, but this is a disaster. If you were Israel, would you take this Hamas deal saying, get out, the war's over, and you just give us all of we'll give you our hostages back? Or, if you were Israel, wouldn't you just go in, kill them all into Rafah, and save what hostages are left yourself? I would. 800-288-WBAP is our number, 800-288-9227. Coming up next, more details on Hamas not having enough living hostages, and also, man, I got some good stuff. I'm going to read you that quote from Blinken that was such a appeasement strategy, and how Ukraine is failing because of Joe Biden too. Next. News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Make it a preset. Iran on the brink of war against the Israelis, and in fact, they've reportedly moved a lot of one-way drones and ballistic missiles, getting ready to attack Israel. And Joe Biden came out and broadcast to everybody, hey guys, Iran's planning on attacking Israel directly or through its proxies, and it'll either strike within Israel or it'll strike at one of its embassies. And Joe says, don't. He's sending 2 warships to the area. Israel says, if you attack us, we will directly attack you. And inside of Iran, we are on the precipice of a wider, bigger Middle East war that will then immediately involve us actively firing at and against any entity that is attacking Israel directly, if it gets to that level that we just described. And so then we are in the war. And this is done by walking backwards into war, as people say. This is done because weakness is a provocation. As one general says, I heard that quote on Fox News today, Joe Biden is provoking Iran and its allies through weakness. And that is provoking, particularly in that area of the world, but also with China, Russia, and et al. So Blinken said, and this is from CNN, this just blew me away that I read this, opinion in the Israeli-Gaza war, how Biden unwittingly helps Hamas. Joe Biden has been helping Hamas. Joe Biden, according to Jason D. Greenblatt, White House Special Envoy to the Middle East from 2017 to 2019 in the Trump administration, says that Blinken has suggested, as I mentioned to you, that Israel's failure to prevent civilian casualties in Gaza put the Jewish state at risk of being no better than Hamas. So let me see, like 3-4 days ago or so, Blinken and Biden equate Israel with Hamas and say you're like Hamas. And now today they do a 180 and they say we're devoted to the defense of Israel. We will support Israel and help defend Israel, and Iran will not succeed. They've sent a message that they want Hamas to win, that they don't want Israel to go into Rafah and kill all the Hamas terrorists, and they've excoriated them and attacked them and threatened to pull their aid and their weapons until they get out of Gaza, or at least get out of Rafah and do whatever we tell them to do under Joe Biden. And so now what Joe Biden has done there has begotten Iran going after Israel and now perhaps doing a war. So now Joe's doing a 180 and saying, oh, Israel, we're behind them 110%. Do you understand how schizophrenic this whole policy is? Because this man, as Barack Hussein Obama's former SecDef said, Bob Gates, Joe Biden's been wrong on every single foreign policy issue for 40 years. It's been 10 years, and it's now 50 years he's been wrong. Do you blame this widening Middle East war on President Biden? Do you blame him for this widening Middle East war, Joe Biden? And if you were Israel, would you take the deal that Hamas says, hey, Israel, get out of everywhere and we'll give you your hostage back? And by the way, oops, we used to have 134. A lot of them are dead. We might only have 40. So I don't know about you. If I was Israel, I would just finish the job and go in and kill them all in Rafah. Not all people there. I'm just saying all of the Hamas terrorists, and finish the job. This is incredible what we're seeing, and it's all done because there's a vacuum of power other than Iran, Israel there. Fox News veteran national security correspondent Jennifer Griffin says, I've been covering the Middle East for 30 years. She said this every hour on Fox News throughout the day today. She says, I've been covering the Middle East for 30 years, and I have never seen things so tense with the potential for a wider war breaking out between Israel and Iran, which could draw the U.S. and others into a wider Middle East war. Here we are. 800-288-WBAP is our number, 800-288-9227. Second of all, we see an amazing and sad sweeping piece today in the Journal. Israel is facing the prospect of losing the war. It's because Joe Biden has not let them finish the job. Joe Biden has made them go slow and extra safe. And because they've gone slow and extra safe, Joe Biden now says, you're taking too long, wrap it up. So he caused it to go slow. Now he's causing it to try to make it fast. He excoriated Israel. Now he's saying we're going to protect Israel. This freaking man couldn't do foreign policy to get himself out of a paper bag. And it shows. And unfortunately, it's causing wars and wars, like in Ukraine. Ukraine saying to, in an NBC News exclusive report, says today, Ukraine digs defenses in, fears it could lose war without U.S. aid in Russia as attacks increase. If I was Russia, I'd finish the job and take out Ukraine now, because they ain't going to win. Well, we all know that as of late, but now they're really not going to win. And Biden just told Ukraine, look at this guy. Here's what he did with Ukraine. He said, quote, Biden tells Ukraine not to hit Russia. He told Ukraine, don't strike Russia. This man is a complete and total weak appeaser, which causes war. One more thing, you know all those casualty counts that Hamas provides, that the mainstream media reports as if it's fact? Wait till you hear how bad those facts are. They are not facts. It is fleshed out in an article that I'm going to share with you next, and it's nowhere near what Hamas says they are, these casualty counts. That is next on the Chris Crock Show on News Talk 820 WBAP, and now on FM at 93.3. And then also, within a few minutes after that, in the next segment, we get into, guess what? ERCOT is telling us to conserve power again. Did you hear that? Already. I mean, well, let's be in their defense. It's about 100 degrees out today, right? And next week it's going to be 105, 110, I think I've seen, right? So, I mean, I understand. Oh, wait, it's not. That's next. News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Make it a preset. Chris Crock Show. 800-288-WBAP is our number, 800-288-9227. Talking about a little bit more on Hamas and particularly tonight, Iran is on the precipice of attacking Israel, and our president has decided to broadcast to the world that this is about to happen. This guy is so foolish, and it's so sad. He created this war through his weakness, and everybody knows it. Do you blame this widening Middle East war on President Biden? And if you were Israel, would you take this Hamas deal that says get out completely and ceasefire completely, and then we'll give you your hostage back? Sorry, we don't have 135 left anymore. We just figured it out. Only about 40 some odd are alive that we're going to give you at least. There might be some military-age men they're not going to give no matter what. But also this, a number, by the way, 800-288-WBAP on that. Hamas Health Ministry, which is, the Gaza Health Ministry is Hamas. They admit to flaws in their casualty data. This is the Foundation for the Defense of Democracies. They released this article and this research today. The Hamas-run Ministry of Health says it has incomplete data data for the 11,371 of the 33,000 supposed dead. They literally don't have enough information to confirm anything about 1/3 of the alleged casualties. But you can believe them like CNN does and MSNBC and the mainstream media. They don't have the information like their identity number, whatever that is for Gazans, full name, date of birth, or date of death. And this is what's really funny. In an earlier report, they said there were 12,263 casualties they couldn't account for, which would be another 900 more deaths that they could not come up. They're like, we don't even know what happened. So 3 days later, they changed it. It just dropped 900 people less in 3 days. What changed? Who knows? Second of all, and this is very critical for you to understand, that those alleged 30 or 33,000 civilian deaths, it's from Hamas, but more importantly, they get it from, quote, are you ready for this? Reliable media sources. So they don't provide who the media sources are. And there's no, inside of Gaza, the only media is terrorist Hamas media. Oh, we're so sorry, we have media reports. Really? Okay, so the only media inside of Gaza is Hamas. Those are the reliable media reports. You must trust us, inshallah. And they never identify the sources in question, and Gaza has no independent media, they say. So there you go. Oh, let's make it 50,000. Guess what else they talk about in this report? Do you remember when there was a bomb or something that hit that hospital? And they lied and said 500 people were killed. Remember that? Oh, Israel bombed our hospital and killed 500 Palestinians. Well, first of all, Israel proved it, and U.S. agreed publicly with our intelligence, separate intelligence, that it was Hamas firing a rocket that malfunctioned and went down and hit the hospital itself. The parking lot. That was the parking lot one. And Hamas lied and said it was Israel. Hamas lied and said it was 500 people. And it was most likely closer to 100 people is what the United States intelligence says. And it was their rocket. It is the Jews. The Jews are doing it. No, you did it to yourself, and it was 100, not 500. So you can basically count on Hamas saying when 33,000 people are dead, that take 1/5 of that number. Take 1/5 of that number. That's the number. And there's about, I would take about 20 to 30% of them off the top as well, because those are the terrorists. So it's probably 11 or 12,000 people dead, and there's probably about 4,000 of them or 6,000 of them are terrorists. That's what I would say is probably accurate. Last but not least, the shoddy work here. This is evidence of their shoddy work, says the FDD, Foundation for Defense of Democracies, and the ministry's data may be incomplete at best and fictional at worst, they say. There's a deliberate effort to downplay the number of terrorists who have been killed, potentially numbering more than 10,000 terrorists killed, and they don't want you to know that. The U.S. intelligence report, as I mentioned, on the hospital where it landed, the bomb was a missile from Hamas, and it landed in the parking lot, as I mentioned, that killed only about 100 or so people. The IDF reported 12% of the rocket. Listen to this. The IDF says also, the Jewish military says, the Israeli military says, that 12% of every rocket that lands in Hamas is from their rockets, because it's all homemade from the pipes, water pipes, and everything they steal from the aid work that is given to them. Last but not least, Iran is killing journalists. And we know they tried to kill one of an Iranian-American journalist in New York City. An assassin was sent after that woman, and others have gone. But listen to this. In London, a man got out of his car who is a broadcaster for a network that was launched about 3-4 years ago, based out of London and one other country. I can't remember what it was, but it's a free Iranian network. And the man was getting out of his car in London. One man come up to him and asked for change. Another man with his face covered gave him a bear hug. The first man who asked for change then stabbed him several times. There are other lead anchors on this network. It's called Iran International. It's a Saudi-funded Persian-language broadcaster based in London and Washington. And there are death threats. They have a wanted dead or alive poster, Iran does, that they released 2 years ago. emblazoned with the faces of 4 anchors from Iran International Network. One of them had worked for the BBC Persia for more than a decade before joining the Iran International book. So they're killing people and stabbing them in London, and undoubtedly they would do it here. This is who Joe Biden has been kissing butts to and giving $8 billion to. All right? I want you to know that. Meantime, as you know, the high next week is going to be searing and crippling. I see here in the Dallas Morning News, the high is 88 degrees next week. And as you know, 88 degrees in April is very difficult for Texas. 88 degrees in April is not common. We're in the upper Midwest here. We're not used to heat in Texas, obviously. Heat is not very common here. We're usually very mild climate here, especially in summer. It's usually very, very mild. So obviously that is why you won't be shocked to hear that when we have a high next week of 88 degrees, ERCOT's telling you you're going to have to conserve your power. April, 88 degrees, too much for Texas, too tough for Texas. Woo! We can't handle 88 degrees. Woo! 88 degrees, too much, yo. We in Alaska. We ain't in Texas. Now, we need some help down here. We need a real grid. How unusual do you think it is that it's going to be 88 degrees next week in the third week of April? What do you think? Is that unusual for Texas? Is that something that's abnormal? ERCOT certainly does, because they just told us that our grid might collapse next week. Well, they didn't put it that way, but they literally said a big warning next week where we're going to need you to conserve power. We can't handle 88 degrees in late April. Can't handle it too much. Not in Texas. What do you think we live in the middle of a desert? Come on, guys. What do you think, we live in Vegas? Nah. Think we live in Phoenix? Nah. So are you ready to conserve power already next week? Ha ha ha! Are you ready? Are you ready to lower the temperature? To raise the temperature in your house when it's 88 out, and let your house get up to 90, 95, so that we can make sure that we don't collapse our grid, because it's your fault. It's not their fault. It's not Governor Abbott's fault. It's not the Republican governors, including Abbott, Perry, and Bush. No, they didn't sell us out and let the green stuff come in. No. So what do you think about that? Are you excited about having to turn your power down or lower your power usage next week? Are you going to? Do you feel that our grid possibly collapsing or being too stressed next week in April? Is that a little concerning to you, or is that not a big deal? Is that normal? We can't handle 88 next week. I'll ask you this, and what or who do you blame for our Texas electricity grid being such a joke? And will you lower your power usage during these times, particularly next week and freaking the third week of April? Will you lower your power usage to keep the grid from having an emergency? All that is coming up next, and I'll give you a lot more of the details. Shocking. Third week of April, conserve power already. Bend over and smile. That's next. 800-288-WBAP is our number. 800-288-9227. Chris Crock Show, News Talk 820 WBAP. Again, more details on this. All the details of why ERCOT is saying, up next week you're going to have to lower your power, and what they're doing that shows how much of a joke our grid is next. News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. 800-288-WBAP is our number. 800-288-9227. What do you say, guys? What do you think? Should we be okay with this? Are you willing to lower your power usage next week in April because it's going to be 88 degrees? Does that sound like something you're willing to work with us on? 800-288-WBAP. Us. I say us like I have a mouse in my pocket. Let me tell you what I'm doing. I ain't doing jack. I'm going to do whatever I want. If I'm cold, I'm going to lower the AC. If I'm hot or warm, I'm going to turn the AC up. I'm not changing my power. If I want to do my dishes, I'm going to do my dishes. I'm not going to look at anything or worry about anything. If I want to do my laundry and my dishes and have my air conditioning at 69 degrees, I'm going to do it. You know why? Because I live in freaking America. You know why? You know what else? I thought I was in the freest state in the country. I'm not. Texas it has a California grid. We are California now. And who has done this is Governor Abbott. Before that, Governor Perry, and before that, Governor Bush. Because every time those guys were in office, every year after year, they allowed the federal government to subsidize and bastardize the incentivization for energy companies to come here and build a plant. Instead of building a natural gas plant or a coal plant or a nuclear plant, they said, well, I mean, we don't care which one. We just want to make money in energy, which is what we do. But you know what? With the government giving us all this money, we will make more money faster if we have solar and wind. And so that's why we're here. I'll read the Wall Street Journal from just about 2 weeks ago. Quote, the IRA, Inflation Reduction Act, which is the Green Deal, obviously, IRA tax credits can offset up to 50% of the cost of renewable operators. Okay, baseload plants cannot turn a profit operating when needed only to back up renewables. So the IRA has given up has offsetting 50% of the cost to make renewable plants, solar, wind. Half the cost paid for by the government. Baseload plants. Baseload is natural gas, coal, nuclear. And mind you that when we have a crisis in the grid, like we did a couple years ago in February, ice apocalypse, and the grid almost collapsed. It was this close to actually fully collapsing. Natural gas was able to turn up and increase. They were able to turn it up to 11, as Spinal Tap says, 5 times the normal baseload power. They went boom, 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 boom. I've tweeted 5, 10, 15 times over the past 3 years the Wall Street Journal chart showing what happened during the near grid collapse. Natural gas went boom, way high. It stayed high as long as they needed it. Nuclear stayed the same because it always does as a nice little thing, lower one. And then coal went up, I think it was maybe 30-40%. I can't remember the exact amount. It was okay. It helped. It went up. Wind collapsed. Solar collapsed. And what they're saying in this Wall Street Journal, in this Dallas News article today is, and in the Wall Street Journal article, is that when you have all these green things, you need peaker plants. You need new natural gas plants that will not make any money except when you have to turn them on to provide energy because the solar and wind aren't working. Peaker plants are very expensive. Nobody wants to buy them because the plant's going to sit idle, save a few weeks out of the year. So nobody wants to build a new plant if you're only going to use it 3 weeks out of the year because they're going to lose. Joe Biden is doing all of this. He's destroying our grid and the nation's grid. So here we go. And my questions are, what or who do you blame for our Texas electricity grid for being such a joke? And will you lower your power usage during these times for next week already to keep the grid from having an emergency? 800-288-WBAP is our number, 800-288-9227. Here's some of the highlights from this article today from Dallas Morning News. They're the only ones that had this that I saw. ERCOT warns rising temperatures may cause power emergency next week in April. Grid operator will cancel and delay planned generator outage. They were going to do generator outages for maintenance and stuff like that next week, but they're canceling it all. Nope, no more maintenance. You don't get maintained. Just run it dry, and then when it collapses, our grid will collapse. No problem. So they say that ERCOT is warning residents higher temperatures will increase demand across the grid, resulting in a power emergency. We're going to have a freaking emergency next week. Over 88 degrees. And the temperatures, 88 for the high, 80s through the middle of the week, and somehow we can't handle that anymore. Grid operator has come under fire from residents, they said. The 2021 winter freeze. And however, ERCOT officials have also claimed the grid has held up strong during high demand periods like the total solar eclipse. Now, that's what's funny. Oh, we were fine through the eclipse. Do you know that that's only because of solar? What the hell do you mean we were fine because of the eclipse? An eclipse shouldn't matter. Do you know that I told you that we lost 17 gigawatts during the eclipse? Do you know what 17 gigawatts is? We lost 5.1 million power. We lost the ability to power 5.1 million homes in the eclipse. That's where your grid is. 5.1 million is San Antonio and Austin's metropolitan areas combined. That's what we lost. Do you understand that? Got about 2.5 million in San Antonio metropolitan area, and you got about 2.1 million and 2.2 million in Austin. That's 4.6 million people. We lost more than San Antonio and Austin combined. This is a joke, and blame this governor and our previous two governors for letting this happen to us. And by the way, do you want to know how bad the energy prices have gotten under Joe Biden? I have it right here, a brand new editorial that came out today. Tell us just wait till you hear how much extra you're paying in energy costs for your energy bill at home, and that you will pay when you have a new one. I got to sign my new one up in a few weeks. The rates are way high under Biden. They have the exact amount, like how much energy has gone up in the past 10 years, how much in 7 years before Biden, and how much during Biden. It's stunning, and it shows you where he's leading us, and it's off a cliff. That's coming up next on the Chris Crock Show on News Talk 820 WBAP. And then we have much, much more on Rashee Rice. How many miles per hour was Rashee Rice, the Kansas City Chiefs star, driving on Central Expressway before he crashed? How about the other guy? How many miles an hour were they? This is going to piss you off. Excuse my language. Do you know what it is, Garrett? You know what it is? No, I got it. I had the mile, how fast they were going. They just came out today. All that's next. 800-288-WBAP is our number. 800-288-9227.